Okay, we're ready. 1, 2, 3. Pashas Kisavoy. The Gemara tells us, why do we read the Klalis of Mishnah Torah right now, before Rosh Hashanah? Because Tichle Shana V'Kila Loiseha, let the year end with all its curses. Tochel Shana V'Kila, let the year begin with its brachas. We get the Klalis out of the way, and now we're ready to receive Hashem's brachas. And it would seem on its simple surface interpretation that it is but an omen, like we do certain things on Rosh Hashanah that are simona tava, they're good signs. And that's what it would seem, that we want to finish all the teichacha, all the klalos, all the things that are no good, so that we can begin a new start, a fresh start. But perhaps there is something much deeper than that over here. It's not simply an omen. The Zohar Kodesh and the Sfarim tell us that in the teichacha lies the greatest brachas. We read the teichacha and it's hair-raising, it's chilling. But deep beneath the lines lie great brachas. Because in anything that Hashem brings or gives to us lies an inherent bracha. The teichacha ends with the words, V'hoyu chayecha tzuluim mineged. Your life is constantly hanging in the balance. And to us, that sounds like something terrible. But in truth, in that lies a source of great blessing. As we find with the man is heavenly blessing. Vaya'ancha, vayarivecha, vayachilcha es hamon. The Torah tells us, Vaya'ancha. He was ma'ana us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes it difficult, so that we need to come on to him. And Ani has to stretch out his hands, and he knows that at all time he's dependent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu's goodness and giving. And that's a bracha in disguise. It might feel like a klala, but between the lines, there's an intimate connection that we can have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the vayancha, in the vayeravecha, in the feeling hungry, and then we recognize and appreciate everything that he gives us. We realize that it's lo ya'ala lechem levade yichya ha'adam. It's motzei pi Hashem. And it's very hard, but in everything in life, we could see it in two ways. I remember sitting at a shiur, and there was a wonderful Talmud Chacham giving a very, very deep shiur, and I was sitting near the front, and the president of the shul was there. This Talmud Chacham was invited to speak, and the president was so fidgety. It was so completely, you could see it was such a torturous experience to have to sit through this hour. And underneath the table, he was just looking at his phone, but he couldn't text or type or do anything because it would have been inappropriate. But it was like, And those Talmidei Chachamim that were looking at the Maggid Shiur and drinking in every word. It was like an Oineg Ruchni for them. It was such a delight. One man's curse is another man's blessing. And what we need to do is, in our own lives, the things that we think are a curse are really, see the deeper dimension within them. They are really a blessing. We have to create a paradigm shift within ourselves so that tichle shana v'kila leisah. We look back at the year and we see there's a tachlis, there's a purpose in everything that happened to us. Everything is meaningful, even its klalos. And then when we change inside, now we are kelim, now we are recipients in order to be able to receive Hashem's bracha. Everything is like that. We could look, I see some people davening. Davening is potentially the most delightful, exciting an encounter, an invitation into Hashem's palace. We read the brachas and the Pesukei de Zimra. There's such an overflow. Haboicha b'shirei Zimra. And for some people, davening is almost torturous. It's onerous. It's rigid. It's something that you have to do to get off the checklist. And the very same thing. Can we just tell them to stop the noise for a minute? You're on. And the very same thing that is essentially a bracha could be a klala. It's like that in all of life. And it's the message of the parsha. The Bikurim, the beginning of the parsha, is the tachlis ma'aser shemaim ba'aretz. Bereshis bara elikim, at the beginning of Hashem's creating of heaven and earth, Bereshis, Bishvil HaTorah Shenikra Reishis. Chazal say for the sake of Torah. Bishvil Yisrael, for the sake of Yisrael. Bishvil Bikurim, for the sake of Bikurim. Bikurim is the purpose of Shemayim V'Aretz. Because what is Bikurim? Bikurim is taking those first fruits. We worked the whole winter. It was so dark. It was so difficult. It was so hard. It looked like there was no meaning and no light. But l'chol tichle re'isi kates. For every challenge and for every trouble, we have to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that light at the end of the tunnel shines through the tunnel. Even while we're in the tunnel, we're engaging bracha. And the person comes with his basket all the way to Yerushalayim. The joy that accompanied him. Because Bikurim is the same word as bracha. It's the same letters. A Bechor, the firstborn, is the one who creates a continuum. He's the one who ensures and secures the chain, the legacy, from father to son. That is bracha. Bracha means to connect the dots. There's a brecha, there's a stream coming from the heavenly throne all the way down to us. And we're the recipients, we're the baskets, we're the one who is receiving all that bounty and all that goodness. When we see it, when we acknowledge it, when we recognize it. And when we recognize it, there is such joy. V'samachta b'chol hatoiv. We rejoice in all the goodness that Hashem gives us. And if we don't see it, if we don't recognize it, Chazal says, Summa, a person who's blind, is choshev kames, he's like he's dead. Because if we don't see, then we're disconnected. It's a klala. Klala is disconnect. We're disconnected. Summa pata min hara'iyah. The Gemara tells us a summa, blind person, is pata from going up to Yerushalayim for oile l'regel, because it says lo yiro panarekum. We're supposed to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu over there. Lirois v'lei rois. And if we don't see all the goodness, or betuv Yerushalayim, if we're not capable of taking out and extracting all the goodness and seeing the goodness, then it's like we're a summa. There's no bracha. V'samachta b'chol hatoiv. Now, if we read the Parsha of Bikurim, we find something so fascinating and interesting. For Anisav Amata, we come to the Kohen, and we put the Samto Batena, we put all our fruits and all our goodness in this basket. It's fascinating that the words Tena, basket, is not found anywhere else in the Torah, but this week in the Parsha it's found 3 times. 3 times? That clearly tells us the message of the Parsha. The message of the Parsha lies in this basket. We find it here, V'samta Batena, and then later on the Torah tells us that if we are connected, if we hear the voice of Hashem, and we hearken to his voice, then we receive all his brachas. Baruch Tanacha u'mishaltecha. One of them is Baruch Tanacha, blessed is your kneading trough. And if not, then Oro Tanacha, cursed is your kneading trough. There's no bracha in the basket, in the Torchacha. And this is the message of the Parsha. This is the message of Bikurim, because we are a tenor. We are exactly that. We're just a clay kibble. We're just a vessel. And if we're connected, if we bring it to the Kohen, and we see the blessing, there's great joy. V'samachta b'chol hatoiv. We can rejoice in all the good, b'chol hatoiv. And if not, we read in the Torchacha just the opposite. Tachas asher lo avadeta, all these klalos come because we didn't serve Hashem b'simcha, tuv levov, miroiv koil. Recognizing in the roiv, in that which we have, there's koil, there's everything. V'samachta b'chol hatoiv. We have to choose blessing. Tichle shana v'kila loisa. We have to create that paradigm shift at the end of the year. Instead of saying, what a tough, hard year, Hashem. I hope next year you're going to do better for me. Tachel shana o birchaiseha. No, that's not what it means. What it means is, tichle, in the shana v'kila loisa, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to shift my attitude. I'm going to see this tachlis in everything. I accept it all. Because each and every one of us has the proverbial glass that's half full or half empty. And if we look at where it's half full, we see it's overflowing. We're the glass, we're the basket, we're the tenor, we're the clay kibble, we're the vessel. And if we look at where it's half full, it's overflowing. We have a choice. We could look at where it's full, or we could look at it and see where it's half empty. It's no good, this is no good, that's no good. And then it's all empty. We see nothing. The way we see ourselves, the way we shift ourselves is the way we see others. It's the way we see our world. Sometimes, I tell my children, I sometimes slip into this mode of, when I was growing up, it was so different. They don't like it, and rightly so. The Torah says, we have to bring the Bikurim to the Kohen that's in those days. Sometimes we say, today's leaders, look, my Rav, when I grew up, did I have a Rav? That's not a wise thing to really say, because what I have to do is, the bracha is to see everything is Ashayir B'Yom Mahem. That which I have is good, it's great. I can always look at the Chesroinus. And sometimes when we're exposed to the underbelly of our Torah society, and we see foibles and we see chesroinus, and then we think, it's so terrible. But we have a choice. We, human beings, can live apart from ourselves. We have a choice. We're distinct from the animal. We have a conscience. We have a higher mind that has a choice. There's a space within us between stimulus and response, between what we see in life, what we experience in life, and how we interpret life. And that's the moment of free choice. And our choice is to see good. And then we're connected to the source of bracha. We're connecting bracha. We're connecting the dots all the way back to the heavenly throne. And it's for this reason, va'anisa va'amarata, Arami Oived Avi, we say the whole Pasha, Arami Oived Avi Vayerid Mitzrayma. Arami Oived Avi often tried to destroy Yaakov. He chased after him. He wanted to uproot him. And Yaakov eventually went down to Mitzrayim. Being in the house of Lavan was the precursor to our going down to Egypt. And going down to Egypt, in Egypt, it's a microcosm of all future Goliaths. But ultimately you took us out by Yotzienu Hashem Elokeinu Misham. And it's fascinating that this is the Pasha that we read on the night of the Seder. And there, in the Haggadah, we take every word of this declaration when we bring the Bikurim to the Beis HaMikdash, and we expound every word, and we live in it. Rabbi Simcha says, Va'anisa va'amarata. What's that va'anisa? What are we answering? What are we responding to? We're responding to our life. Va'anisa is a remiss to the Haggadah lechem oini. In the Haggadah on the night of Seder, we eat the bread of affliction. We're celebrating our freedom. Why are we eating the bread of affliction? Say Chazal, lechem, it's a bread she'oinin olav dvorim harbe. That we answer upon it many words. We're responding to the lechem oini. Because we see in that bread of affliction, in those matzahs, we see freedom. We see the Yetzias Mitzrayim. We recognize the whole purpose of the Haggadah is to recognize that in the oini lies freedom. Haggadah comes from the word goid. It flows. God gudud yugudenu. Good achis. It flows down. Lahagid. We're living something for real because we're connected to it. It's flowing. We're living the bracha. We're going out of Egypt. And so we say this parasha of Avos Bikurim because Bikurim is all about connecting the dots to the source of bracha. It's all about recognizing V'simachta b'chol ha'toiv, that whole difficult winter where I plowed and I toiled and I had to trust that there's meaning in this. And then the very first shoots, when they come out of the ground, the very first blossoms, koira Allah, koira cholov gemi, I'm acknowledging and recognizing it's coming from you. And I take that blessing and give it back to you. That's a mindset that is the source of bracha. It's the source of blessing. It's a whole different world. That's the message of the whole Pasha. We look at the whole Pasha, we're reading this at the end of the year. We have the brachas of Hagrizim and Ha'eval. And all the Klal Yisrael are standing on both sides and the Levim in the middle. And they turn their heads this way, and it's a bracha. And the very same words, Oro Asher Loi, the inverse, the converse, is a klala. It depends where we're turning our heads to. We could see it this way, or we could see it that way. That is what we want to do at the end of the year. We want to be able to be recipients of bracha. We want to accept his malchus and feel connected to him and be gebenched with a year of chayim, of life. Chayim means being connected to the source of life. It's seeing the blessing. It's so hard to see the blessing when we're experiencing the challenge and the difficulties and the shortcomings. You know, we have a choice. We could look in the eyes of our spouse, our children, our close ones, and we could see all the ways and places where they are failing our expectations and we're feeling deprived and shortchanged. Or we could look in their eyes and see such bracha, such gift, such goodness. And when we see goodness, it triggers goodness. And when we see what they're lacking for us, it only compounds it and constricts the heavenly flow and reinforces the negative behavior that bothers us. It's built into creation. We don't have to change anybody. We have to change ourselves. And we become Kalim, we become the tenor. We recognize it's all Hashem's fruits. Hashem's bounty, Hashem's goodness, our eyes, you know, our feet, our ability to talk, all the brachas. We have to train ourselves. It's so hard because the body superimposes all the places where it feels it's pained and it's shortchanged and it's starving for certain things. And we have to make from the roiv a coil. Sometimes we have to fake it till we make it. We have to, I have, in our family, sometimes on Shabbos. Shabbos is the Makor HaBracha. Shabbos, the eyes open up. My father, Oliver Shalom, on Shabbos, he used to say Birchas HaMazon from the Siddur. A whole week he was busy, he was a balabas. He wasn't able sometimes to say Birchas HaMazon from the Siddur. He was on the run. Shabbos, I never ever saw him not say Birchas HaMazon. He was very particular to say every word slowly from the Siddur. Because Shabbos, that's what it's all about. It's the Makor HaBracha. It's seeing bracha. It's experiencing Hashem's bounty. And our job is to take the Shabbos into the week. On Shabbos, sometimes around the table, I tell my children, come, let's identify some of the brachas that Hashem gives us. And everybody has to say something. Of course, the first kid says, we have this niggin, thank you Hashem, thank you Hashem. Everyone chimes in, thank you Hashem, thank you Hashem. And then everyone's looking at that child and they say, thank you Hashem for giving us such wonderful parents. Or whatever. They have to. Well, that's the first one, and the second one is for thank you for such wonderful Shabbos food. But then you have to start being a little bit more creative. We have to think, well, what do we have brachas in our life? We have to do it for ourselves on Shabbos. At least this last Shabbos, as we enter into the parsha of Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kolchem, the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah, we're experiencing Rosh Hashanah already. But here, at the end of the year, we want to see Tochel Shana Ubircheseha. That right now, the beginning is now, that we see in the year. It doesn't say Shana Haba. We see the brachas right now. We're changing our mindset. It's a whole new world. We have to sing it and celebrate it constantly and teach ourselves, even though it goes against our grain, to create that separation. We can choose bracha. It's the same thing that's bracha and klala. And it's true, I gravitate to see the klala, because it affirms all those feelings that I'm being shortchanged and victimized by certain people or circumstances, or in life I'm always getting the raw end of the stick. But no, open up, I have to open up my eyes. It's the beginning of Elul. See the bracha. See the bracha. V'samachta b'chol ha'tov. Sometimes we have to sing it, even if we don't feel it. Just sing it till it becomes real. And it is